Alright, how's everybody doing today? My name's Jeremy Knox. I'm from Gulf Shores High School down here in Gulf Shores, Alabama. My group had chapter 13 and consists of David Dismukes, Miss Tameka, and me, Jeremy Knox. Miss Tameka had slides 1 through 10, and I'm going to round this out with 11 through 19. Slide 11 talks about the implications for career and technical education practitioners, or simpler terms, teachers. For us teachers and all, as teachers or career tech administrators, whichever path we're wanting to go down, we need to try to recruit more minority teachers from business and industry, because as students in our classes, we have more minority students and we need more diversity in class. They would like to see that, there is life for them outside of high school, outside of the four walls they're in every day and such. We need to introduce alternative teaching strategies to in pre-service and in-service teaching training programs, like here at Auburn that we did the in-service training and such. Gives us a new idea of what stuff's like outside of where we grew up. Career and technical education programs must also make efforts to recruit both diverse students and diverse faculty. Going back to what I talked in number one, you have diverse student groups inside your classroom. They need to see, in some facet that, there is life for them outside of these four walls, from a teacher from a minority background or a business industry person from a minority background. Primary reason attributed to the failure of diversity initiatives is a lack of accountability. Just like in New Year's coming up, we're all going to try to lose weight or do this or do that. If you don't have an accountability partner, chances are it ain't going anywhere. Career and technical education practitioners should develop faculty student training and developmental programs to increase awareness. Just like we all have to get our professional development hours, we should have these trainings as well to help us with diversity and such. By engaging in strategies to attract and retain minority teachers in career and technical education, the field can fulfill its mission to provide capable graduates for a world of work. Closing the achievement gap. Basically, these three things talk about the different achievements gaps that we face as career and technical education teachers, or just teachers in general. The domestic achievement gap basically talks about, if you grow up in we heard about in our methods classes in undergrad, talking about, if you grow up in a low socioeconomic background, chances are, that you're going to be there in that socioeconomic background for the rest of your life if you don't take some initiative, or, that you're going to have low test scores and low this and low that. Well, that's not always true. Me as a personal belief, not so much a, book talk belief. I believe, you can be what you want to be. It doesn't matter on where you're born or what you're born into. It matters on how far you want to go in life, how hard you want to push yourself. If you're happy and complacent where you are, then you'll be there the rest of your life. If you want to keep getting better and doing bigger and better things, then you will do bigger and better things throughout your life. And this goes on down to the international achievement gap, talking about how, we as students, you want to make them better themselves and they need to better themselves. We're all the time talking about how China and Japan is so much further ahead of us on a learning curve, how their students actually want to be there, how they want to participate in different things. We're talking about the gap, trying to close the gap between us and China and Japan and these other countries that are steadily stepping up and raising the bar that we're playing second fiddle to. We need to go on and pass these countries and assert ourselves as the dominant America that we used to be and know that we still can be. And the ambition gap. The ambition gap and the domestic achievement gap, to me, kind of go hand in hand. If you, are in that domestic achievement gap, your low socioeconomic background and such, you can have the ambition to just be more than just a, regular old lay person in the workplace, just a plain Jane run the mill, your plain associate. You should strive, outside the workplace and in the workplace to get that manager's position and just strive to keep going up and up the ladder. But you can also be complacent, like I talked about in domestic achievement gap, where you don't want to do anything. You're just happy where you are, and that doesn't matter if you come from a low socioeconomic background or you come from one of those silver spoon families. It just all depends on you and your work ethic. That's my opinion. Selected learning models for career and technical education students. Talking about constructivism, we got a lot of bullets here. I'm not going to read you every one, but encourage and accept autonomy and initiative. Like we talked about earlier, people come from different backgrounds. We need to be acceptive of that, and we need to kind of push students to try to do the best they can. When framing tasks, constructivist teachers use cognitive terminology such as classify, analyze, predict, and create. Your students want to know that they're not just going to learn something today. They're going to, learn a hypothesis. What a hypothesis means by predict. We're going to learn how to predict something or hypothesize something, not just, we're going to learn how to guess what something's going to be. Inquire about students' understandings of concepts before sharing their own understandings of these concepts. We should ask, what do you, like my major's ag, so I could ask a student, how do you, what's your understanding of line breeding cattle? And they could just say, well, you breed 3 different types of cattle, and I'm like, well, we need to go back over this. And, I could just go on and tell them, well, you bring an Angus to a Hereford and then a Hereford to a Brahman, and then just keep rotating it back and forth, instead of them just saying, well, you breed A to B, B to A, A to C, and such. Encourage students' inquiry by asking thoughtful, open-ended questions and encouraging students to question each other. Kind of going back to allow students' response to drive and shift instructional strategies after their own content. Just like if I would have said, line breeding and just jumped right into what line breeding is, that wouldn't give me any idea to see where the student's previous knowledge lies, and I could just be, speaking on stuff that I didn't have to speak on, or not elaborating on stuff that I needed to elaborate on. Seek elaboration of students' initial response, just like if I asked a student, what is what's a good example of Smith-Hughes Act? And they could say, well, it gave funding for career and technical education. I could say, well, yeah, you're right, or I could ask them to elaborate on that and tell me what different funding it allowed, what made it so special, or the different stages of the Smith-Hughes Act that we might have talked about. Engage students in experiences that might engender contradictions to their initial hypothesis, then encourage discussion. Need to make students think and rethink why they said what they said and see if it still goes back to their initial reaction. And then nurture students to natural curiosity throughout the frequent use of the learning cycle. Students want to learn. They're curious. They're curious people, just like we're curious as adults. We want to learn how to do stuff. We want to learn the different ways to do things. There's more than one way to skin a cat, as my daddy used to say. We need to try to let which way the students want to learn and then work from that. And one I missed that I find really to be really good is allow wait time for answering questions. We've all heard about the glorious 3-second rule, haven't we? Okay, yeah. See, I didn't wait my 3 seconds there. It's hard as us as teachers, to wait those glorious 3 seconds, and I have to do a better job myself of waiting those 3 seconds, because sometimes, you get in a hurry, you look at the clock, oh Lord, the period's almost over and I still got 20 slides to cover. Let's go. Sometimes, sometimes it's better to put off for tomorrow when it's, dealing with a student's grade and their comprehension. We don't always have to hurry through stuff. In teaching 9 times out of 10, there's always tomorrow, and we can cover this tomorrow. It's better in my mind for us to wait an extra day so we can make a student make sure that they've comprehended this better, instead of us just trugging on through there and then coming test day and realize, hey, I could have spent a little extra time with this student on that particular task. Contextual learning. We talk a lot with contextual learning, career and technical education, kind of like the integrated content, where, like my major being ag ed, we try to integrate science and math and reading and such all into one subject so that they can see a real world view of the things they're learning in math class and learning English and learning science class. But we need to recognize the need for teaching and learning to occur in a variety of context, such as home, community, and work sites. We need to also be trying to bridge that gap into the workforce, letting the students know that, hey, there's life after high school. If you don't want to go straight to a 4-year college and you want to go on and go to work, hey, this is how you can use these skills to get you a job, and be credentialing these students so that they are more employable whenever they get to those job sites. And encourage students to learn together and form together and from each other. You know, sometimes we say as teachers, we learn more from the students than they learn from us probably. And I say that every day. I learn from my students, how to be a better teacher. Hey, Mr. Knox, why did you do it like this? Why didn't you do it like that? Well, John, you're probably right. Let's do it like this next time. And sometimes John's right, and I realize he's right. And sometimes I realize, man, that ain't gonna work. But hey, I'm gonna do it his way this time just to prove to him I do know a little bit of what I'm talking about. And contextual learning, kind of get some characteristics of it. Programmatic life and work skills or issues. Kind of like, my students, they hate algebra, most of them. Being ag, you're supposed to kind of be the easy class. They hate algebra. They don't want to do any of this. But we go out to the greenhouse and go out in the garden and we're spraying chemicals, and I'm teaching them how to mix up and prorate a sprayer to know how much to add and how little of this and how fast we need to drive. They're using algebra. Some of them, get it right then that, hey, this is the same thing we learned right down the hall in algebra class, and some of them, it takes them a minute. But as long as we can add these real life skills into our lesson plans and into our day-to-day teaching methods, then these students will learn that, hey, there is a real life applications for what we're learning in a class where all we do is look at a book and we don't get much of this hands-on like we do in career and technical education classes. Rigor and relevance of curriculum. A rigorous and relevant education is a product of effective learning which takes place in standards, curriculum, instruction, and assessment reinforcement, and reinforce each other. Basically, the best way I know to describe this is when I did my lesson on propagating plants. We've got a greenhouse and we had 23,000 plants in it this year. And I went in there and I could have told the students, okay, hey, this is how you transplant plugs. You push the bottom out with a pencil, you take it, you pick it up, you twist the bottom off of the plug, you make a little hole in the soil media in the cup, and you plant it in that cup. And that's, that is how you transplant a plant. But in order to make it a real more rigorous and a real more relevant and a real more real world, I told them, I said, hey, this is how you do it. You take this and push this out. You twist these roots because they're pot bound. Pot bound is where the roots grow in a circle around it in the shape of the pot. It strangles the plant, called a girdle and root. Then, I could have just left it at that. But I told them, I said, hey, each of y'all, I've got about 30 of y'all in here. I've got almost 30,000 plants. I'm going to give each of y'all about 700 plants to take care of. And these are going to be your babies for the next month and a half, 2 months. You're going to water them every day. You're going to fertilize them. We're going to talk about why they grow and how they grow. And then when we get done, we're going to sell them and we're going to see how we make a profit. This gives them a real world experience. My time's running out, so we're about to hit it quick. Alright, this is a slide of different career clusters. There are 16 different career clusters. I fall under agriculture. My school has a bunch of different career academies. And I think when I added all this up earlier, out of the 16, we have 12 where I teach. Alright, right here in this last minute. Impact of career clusters on CTE. Basically, career clusters in CTE has helped career and technical education be able to bridge the gap between secondary education, post-secondary, and workforce. It helps students feel, that there's real life application of what they're learning inside these four walls, and there's a life for me outside of high school. It also helps programs be able to work with what's within their community. If you're a community out in an urban city, then you're not going to need a livestock-based program in your ag shop. But if you're out in the middle of nowhere, you might need a livestock-based program in your ag shop versus an environmental science program and such. And y'all can read these bullets. I got one more slide in 15 seconds. Alright, and the impact of globalization on career and tech ed in the 21st century. Basically, these are just 10 different facts that have made career and tech ed what it is today and how we've tried to jump in the past few years. Hope y'all